Welcome to the Digital Insight Podcast, where today I welcome back leading digital transformation executive Paul Bailo. Paul joins me today as we kickstart a brand new trilogy where we explore data transformation. In this first part, which is part 1 of 3, Paul and I explore data, C-level talent, and leadership. Organizations are always going to be looking to transform. They're always going to be looking to evolve and adapt and implement new technologies. And obviously, one of the things that we talk a lot about is these new technologies, these new operating models, how great the outcomes are going to be. But it's very rare we talk about a key thing that is sort of underpins all of that, and that's the people, that's the talent. It's all right having the best tools, the best ideas, but if you don't have the talent or you don't invest in that talent, it's ultimately useless. Which kind of obviously is going to form our discussion as part of our digital transformation trilogy. I suppose the kind of broad question I'm going to sort of dive straight in and ask you is, when we talk about digital transformation, when a CTO or a technology executive is sitting at the desk and he's been given the keys to the kingdom, as it were, and he plans the road ahead, how little or how high of a priority, should I say, should talent be when we're discussing digital transformation?
Yeah, well, talent, as you know, is the critical asset to any organization. It's really the keystone to everything we do in digital and data. If you don't have the right talent, the game's over. I mean, when you really think of a company, right, the most valuable asset goes home at 5 o'clock. Nowadays, it never goes home because everyone's working from home. But in any organization, in digital transformation and data transformation, in manufacturing, no matter what it is, it's all about the people, right? I mean, it's all about the people. Even if you look at a Ford Motor Company and they have all these robots, it's still the people how to build the robots. The people have to maintain the robots. So there is no greater asset than the people in your organization and yourself. So what we have to start thinking about is think of yourself even as an asset, a valuable asset to an organization. You as an individual have to be investing in yourself. Forget about buying Apple stock or Google stock or Facebook stock. Go buy yourself an education. And I'm just talking about a formal education or a graduate degree, but stay in the game and keep thinking, right? Keep learning, keep pushing your mental intellect, because that's the most valuable thing in the world. Someone had an idea, right? Someone said, I'm going to create Google, or I'm going to create a new way of a new vaccine. I'm going to be looking at data differently because I'm going to be looking at data in transformation to look at insights. So the value of companies comes from the people, and the value comes from being creative. See, creativity is an individual component. Innovation is the commercialization of creativity. And creativity can only happen by individuals, by imagining and seeing the world differently and thinking the world differently, and really looking at data differently to drive the insights to make these change and transformations. So when CFOs look at their financial statements, there's no line for people. It's actually a line of cost, right? How much are the benefits? How much are the salaries? But you can't survive without the people, right? We put value on a piece of machinery. We put value on a brand. We put value on real estate. And we sort of say, okay, I'm going to give you a salary. So you're sort of putting a value on it. But it's really the people is the reason a company is belonging and being. It's make money, save money, do good in the community, and supply really good jobs for people, honorable jobs. But at the end of the day, none of this holds true unless you have real good, talented people. Now, individuals have to also be in this game because they have to keep pushing the envelope in their learning. I mean, when you look at data and the data transformation, I mean, only recently in the last few years, have there ever been high qualification type of analytic programs in order for people to actually understand data, right? It's all relatively new. So the marketplace is saying, look, data is the future, right? Data is the fuel to digital. And when we're pushing data, individuals really have to say, do I have the right talent? Do I have the programming abilities? Do I have the analytic mindset? Do I know how to write algorithms? Do I understand machine learning? And the answer is no to that. It's not to say give up. It's to build a program for yourself in order to get more educated or better educated to learn these traits. I'm not saying you have to go to Columbia or Harvard or Rice or Yale. I'm saying there are very good programs that you need to learn. And now that learning just increases your value. And not only if you're looking for a new job, but even if you're in a job, you should always be looking to read and take a class and increase the value. I mean, the world is changing. You have to change with it. Now, you could also take the viewpoint that I'm just going to do what I'm going to do, but you just put a shelf life on your career. So at the end of the day, the biggest asset to any organization is always the people. Nothing happens without high quality, high skilled talent. There's no way around this.
You know, we've on this podcast and in our publications and you know, people that I've spoken to, I've talked at length about the ins and outs of digital transformation, about their own particular journeys and their own sort of goals and what they need to sort of achieve. And I do sort of approach the topic of what you're doing about your people, what are you doing about your talent? And it kind of, I don't want to say get swept under the rug, because of course it doesn't get swept under the rug. They will rightly point out and agree, and exactly what you've just been saying there. They will recognize the value of the asset, which is their people. Their biggest asset is the people around them. And if they don't have it, you know, bring in the skill set, leverage expertise from elsewhere. But there is an argument that when, you know, if you were to sort of Google digital transformation, digital journey of any major company, in the headline, it's not going to say it starts with the people. It's very rarely going to say that the people are driving this change. So why do you think when the benefits are clearly there to invest in your people, why do you think that doesn't take priority number one in all these journeys? Why does the tech, the data, the outcome, the so-called sexy stuff take more of a priority over something that's as crucial as the people?
Yeah, I think you said it. It's you know, the technology is cool and sexy. It's a shiny object in the room. You know, it's written up all over the place. Executives like to stroke their ego, but the really smart executives say, hold on. Before any of this happens, I got really good talent, right? When you read an annual report, you don't have a bio of all these great talented people. In my own personal executive experience, when I'm at the boardroom, hardly anyone says anything about, wow, these are good people. These people did a great job. What they say is, look, here's the revenue. Here's how much I made. How much I saved. And going back to the point of looking at the annual report, there's no list of all the great things people done, right? It's not in the financials. So money talks. People and talent usually take secondary stage because it really is sort of an understood thing. I have people, but really good leaders, right, really develop their people, and really good leaders develop their people skills. And when you have a leader who actually wins an award or actually is on stage, they don't make it about themselves. They make it about the people who got them there. I don't know anyone in the world who's been successful by themselves. I just don't see how anyone could say, I did a great job. I deserve to be in the boardroom. It doesn't, you know, how about mom and dad, your brothers, your sisters, your father? I mean, it all helped get you here, your professors and people, your mentors. So for some reason, I think a lot of people look at like, wow, here's a really cool technology. This is really psych. But I think you have to stop for a moment and say, wow, there had to be some really good, talented people to build that new software. But this is where, when we think about true leadership in the digital and analytics space of leaders, the really good ones will stop a moment and acknowledge and recognize people. That's a sign of a great leader. Once again, we have to stop and say, nothing happens without really good people, right? I'm not talking, you know, it's really very, very, very good creative people move the needle in digital and data, right? It's really the thinking and grooming yourself and wiring or rewiring your brains to be extremely creative, which allows people to do really great innovation.
So you've touched on a key point there then. So you talked about, you know, cutting costs and viewing and people and your teams and and essentially the people who make up your business as quite, to put it bluntly, a figure on a spreadsheet next to a bottom line. This amount of people amount to this amount of money, which we could save if we had to cut costs, etc. Obviously, the last year, for example, then, the pandemic, a very difficult period of time for everybody for a multitude of reasons. But from a pure business perspective, many organizations have had to make decisions that, unfortunately have resulted in people losing their jobs, people moving on, that sort of thing. I sort of lost my train of thought there, but basically, how has that kind of impacted that conversation then? So, you talk about, you're absolutely right. Teams need to be seen and recognized and need to see that their leaders recognize them. But obviously, when the circumstances have been so extreme, those external factors have sort of changed everyone's thinking so much. How much of a challenge is it in this new world, whatever it may be, to kind of overcome that, to make them remember that they are part of it, even though the world around them has shown that, unfortunately, at the end of the day, sometimes they can just be seen as a cost rather than as a key asset.
Right. So I think, once again, it's going back to the culture of the organization. So you have this virus, and people now have been disseminated and, are now virtual. So the question really is what you're seeing, even in the stock market, you're realizing this new model, right, of decentralized work is actually working, because when you look at the annual reports and you look at Wall Street, the companies are making money, right? And if anything, being centralized and not having commercial real estate in the major cities like New York City or San Francisco actually is saving people a lot of the company's money, because they're not buying all this real estate. What has to happen, though, is individuals have to realize that, yes, you want to be recognized, yes, you want to do great work, but at the end of the day, you have to make sure you're making money, right? The goal of people is to sort of build this idea that you have to be pushing the envelope for the bottom line. That if you're getting a salary and benefits, you have to really say, my job is to make more than they're paying me. My job is to be invaluable to the organization. My team needs to be, highly successful and valuable, that we're driving revenue. The existence of companies really is to make money or save money. So at the end of the day, the really smart leaders realize that building the right culture, supporting people as individuals, and then really being innovative, creative, and thinking about digital and data, and having people sign up for really big results will drive the fact that people are highly valuable. But at the end of the day, the formula and the existence for companies is to make money.
And you mentioned something quite interesting there about how you said these conversations, but this model, it's always existed, or it's definitely existed for a considerable amount of time. It's just, for whatever reason, there's been roadblocks, there's been reasons not to kind of open their eyes to it, to embrace it, to adapt to it. And obviously then, the last year has kind of forced a lot of people to, I don't want to catch up, but, push them forward and said, look, you're going to have to do it. And look, it's proven to work. And in an ideal world, of course, these changes, these perspectives, these new ways of thinking will change overnight, and they'll be permanent, and it'll be this new world, and it'll be a new future for everyone. And that will be great. For some organizations, that is the case. There will be a new tomorrow, and they will, they won't go back to these old, like say, antiquated ways. However, for some, it's not that easy. It's not that simple to just suddenly pick up their model, throw it out, and put in this new one. There's going to be a period of transition. How difficult is it going to be for those, in the sense that, like you say, they need to make money. So priority one will always be make money. But as they're trying to adopt these new ways, these new models, there's going to be pressures every now and then to say, look, if this isn't going to happen quick, we need to just kind of get back to making money, and they may revert to their previous ways of working. Do you think it's going to be an interesting time to sort of witness these transitions for many?
Yeah, it's going to be painful. Right? Change is painful. I mean, it's one of the hardest things to do. I mean, look, just recently in the United States, you had Texas, the entire state of Texas went out. They knew exactly what they needed to do. They knew it 10 years ago. The report was done. The leaders did it. They did nothing. Inactivity is humankind. There's no pain in the system for them to act. So they choose not to act. They choose not to spend the money. It's like people who drive a car and they choose not to get an oil change every 5,000-6,000 miles. You bought the car, you have to maintain it, right? I mean, it's just normal. So if you want to have a car that runs to 300,000 miles, take care of it. But the leadership chooses not to do things. So when you start looking at these new models, not everyone's going to survive, right? Not everyone's going to survive. Either they're not going to move quick enough, they don't have the right talent, they don't have the right skill set, and they really missed the boat. You have hundreds of companies in the graveyards that basically did a great job. They didn't see the future, they didn't react to it, and it's over. So if organizations choose not to have foresight, not to see what's coming, well, then that's okay too. So your business model is there's a shelf life, and you're going to run the company as long as you can until you have to close the doors. But look, if you're fat, dumb, and happy, and you're making a lot of money right now, and there's not enough pain in the system, no one's going to do anything. It's the really smart companies that realize what got them here won't get them there. And it's part of who they are and what they want to do to say, look, we're doing really well today, right? We're doing financially really well. But, that doesn't mean tomorrow we're going to do just as well. We always have to keep ahead of this. We have to understand what's coming. We have to look at new data sources. We have to look at new technology. We have to look at new things happening globally. And not saying everything is going to pan out, but you have to be at least put some big bets on the table, because at the end of the day, there's only two constants in the world, right? One is constant change. There's no way getting around this, right? Every minute, every second, we're changing. But you can look at the data. I mean, there's tons of companies. Look at banks. Banks are struggling, right? They've been struggling for years because they think people wanted to go into branches, i.e. you had this thing called the internet, right? Some companies basically said, the game's over for traditional banking. It has to be changed, right? And now you see companies that, banks and financial institutions really saying, wow, this whole idea of technology and rebuilding a model, the model isn't to have bank branches. The model is that you have a really good app. Look at insurance. That model is over 200 years old. You buy a policy and you pay every month. That model's old, right? The whole behavior of insurance is a little wacky in my mind, right? You pay to have something insured, but the only people who benefit from, like, hypothetically, car insurance or home insurance, the only way you get any of the money back is that your house gets damaged or your car gets damaged. Don't you think that model's broken, right? Shouldn't I get rewarded that I'm doing good driving and I'm not costing you anything? I mean, for 20 years, I've never had a car accident, but my rates keep going up. The model's broken. So not only is it that organizations have to look at their current model, there's new industries coming out with brand new models that will overtake these industries.
So you've mentioned a few times, of course, about you teaching students. You're teaching essentially the leaders of the future. These kids and these younger people that you're talking to and working with, they are one day going to be the leaders in the positions that we're talking about now. They're going to be having to make these decisions. In terms of, sort of like you just said then, these new operating models, this kind of shift, this impetus that these organizations need to have right now, mm-hmm. When looking at digital transformation then, when looking at kind of just any form of change, how much, because you'll have to forgive the waffly question, because obviously you said there's data everywhere, and I could go online and find data about a company, you could go online, anybody can go online and find information they need about a company more than ever before. We as consumers, as professionals, and as people can understand so much more about brands and businesses like never before. So how much, when you and I are talking about operating models, you and I are talking about this sort of thing because we've spoken to people in these positions, but when someone like a young student or someone who's job hunting, somebody who wants to break into that industry, when they're looking for a job, when they're looking for their potential next role, how much of this feeds into that? How much does a company need to be aware of the stuff that it's doing, the changes it's making, and how that reflects on talent acquisition in terms of they need to be attractive for these future leaders, if that makes sense. They need to be doing things that these future leaders will see and go, okay, I want to be a part of that change. I can then see myself being a part of it for a long time. Like, how much do they need to consider that?
Well, they have to. I mean, I'll give you a perfect example. I was at Harvard at a career fair, right? I was speaking about innovation, and we had this huge career fair. The line was out the door for some companies, and other companies, no one was actually at their table. Okay. So you go in, there's probably 200, 300 different tables, different companies. And I'm looking and watching and saying, Bain, out the door. McKinsey, out the door, literally. And I mean out the door, I mean out the door. Other companies, no one's even lying. They're secondary. They're secondary thoughts, these very young, very intellectually powerful students. Even at Columbia, we had over 300, different companies there. The line was out the door for a Google, a McKinsey, a Bain, and EY, right? But they're there for a reason, right? If you look at their corporate culture, right? One, they pay very well. Two, it's very challenging. You're going to be highly marketable, if you decide to either, stay or go, right? And the culture is very open and supportive. So young people, the talent that I'm trying to, the disciples of data and digital, I'm trying to create, they're going to have a choice of where they want to work and how they want to work, right? There's not enough data digital people out there, right, who've actually been through this, who've been trained formally, who have the technical and the leadership components. There's very few of us and very few students who actually know this. So they're really going to be in the driver's seat to these companies, and they're not going to say, they have the ability to say no, which is a very powerful tool. It's not just the fact they're graduating with a master's degree in applied analytics or a master's degree in digital transformation or in e-commerce. They're going to have these powerful degrees from these powerful universities, and they're going to be in the driver's seat. And it's not going to be financial, right? This is what I want my life to be, and this is what I want from you. And I want you to be an honorable company. I want you to be doing the right thing. I want to be proud of the company. And if not, well, I don't want to work for you. I see this all day long, right? So where organizations have to start thinking about is, I think they have it backwards. They have to really be, if they want to survive, right, for the long term, they have to really be the top organization that people are striving to do. And a simple example of this is CEOs and executives, when their companies have a job fair, just go for a moment and see if people lined up at your table. And if they're not, there's something wrong. Because I'm telling you, Google, Facebook, LinkedIn, Bain, EY, McKinsey, out the door. All the other tables, once people got through that queue line, they go talk to you. So it's very interesting, right? In my microcosm, they're looking and saying, I want a good job. I want to learn. I want to be challenged. I want good leadership. I want to be an honorable company. I want to grow my career. I want to make sure that you care about me. I want things that are changing, right? I mean, this generation moves very quickly. So it's not like I'm going to spend 10 years here, right? You're lucky you get 2 or 3 years and they want to move, or they want to move and do something interesting in 6 months. So the companies that adapt to this, right, doing the cool, interesting, super sexy type of stuff, they're going to have the pick of the talent that they want. Other organizations have to figure out how they could grab some of this talent. And once again, it's not always about money. It's about freedom and ability to, get into a good group and do really cool stuff. But, it's really the students really have to sort of say, look, this is what I can do, but they're currently in the driver's seat. I mean, before the virus, data analytics students, it was like the unemployment for data professionals was like negative. There wasn't enough of us, right? So you had the pick of the crop, even digital transformation. I mean, I see a lot of people with digital transformation trying to put in their LinkedIn and stuff, but they haven't really done anything, right? I mean, have you been in the trenches? Have you really said, look, your model, your current model to executives, look, it doesn't work. You have to really fix this thing. And if you can't fix it, and if you can't be that digital leader in order to do this, well, then you're not adding any value.
These journeys, these changes, it's fluid, it's forever adapting, and you have to adapt with it. But if you could give, if someone was listening to this podcast or watching this podcast, or somebody was, sat there all aware of everything we've discussed, thinking about what we've been talking about, these changing models, about attracting new talent, about the future of talent, and there's obviously these changes can't happen overnight. They can't just click their fingers and fix and solve everything. But if you could give them one kind of thing, one small action, one big action that they could make right now to at least take one step in the right direction, what would it be?
Be the voice of reason and be the person who's going to be the truth teller, right?
Mm.
Be the truth teller. So if people who are listening to our podcast and want to take anything away from this, is really search for the truth in your organization. Stand up and say, look, I think we got a problem here. I don't think we're the best organization. And we're not the best organization because of A, B, C. But your next step has to be, and because we're not the best organization, you have to define what that means to be the best organization. And then to say, look, we're not attracting the talent that we need, right? Or demand. And that's really an internal sort of insight that you have to be honest with yourself.